Okay, today I am doing what I'm going to call Mica Magic 2 is more fun things we can do with mica, with the mica clays. And again, I usually do the demos with the gold Primo because I think it's got the best effect and it shows up well on the camera. And as I'm working here, I have successfully lost one of my stamps because it's too close to me. I know I did the ghost image last time, but people like the ghost image, and so I'm going to do it again. I've got this stamp that I think was called Stone when I bought it. It's one of my favorite probably because I like rocks. And all you need to do, I run this through the POS machine several times to make sure all the mica is lined up and flat. So I'm going to put a rubber stamp on top of that. Now, the real trick here is if you run a brayer over this or a roller over this, only do it once because the stamp does tend to move a little bit when you do that. And so you'll see me pushing on it initially to make sure I get good contact. And then I'll start and just press down firmly and roll once. And it's moving on me. And we'll see how it came out. Oh, really nice. And so that gives me a very nice pattern. And this has got texture on it. So the next step is to go in and shave that so that it does not have it, so it's perfectly smooth. And again, as I explained last time, to do that, I like a flexible blade. And I bend it slightly so I've got good control and it's only touching where I want it to touch. I'll come in and just very carefully slice through this thing. And if it takes me several passes to go through it, so be it. It doesn't matter. I just don't want to get too much shaved off in one pass. I have done that. It's a slightly different effect, and it's interesting to see how deep some of this impression goes. But I will continue to do this and see if I can get the whole thing shaved reasonably well. I picked a smaller one than I did last time. Like I say, I do this, I enjoy it, and B, it's just so cool to see what happens when you're done. And I get asked a lot of questions about it, so I thought I'd run it a second time just in case somebody missed the first video and want to see this technique. Once I've done this, I'm probably going to move towards a lot of the invisible canes. There are many, many things you can do with that. I've used them for a lot of stuff. Or even as I say that, there's other thoughts going through my mind of other things I can demonstrate. That is just about perfectly smooth. And so let me hold that up to the camera. And like I say, that right now, that piece is smooth. In spite of how it looks, it is perfectly smooth. It's just the mica tilting that gives you the effect of some sort of a depth 3D effect on that. Now, while I'm here, let me see if I can do this. If I cut and go in deep, I don't know if this is going to show up or not. Often when I do this, if I can get the camera tilted right, it's going to be tricky. You can see even down here and well into the cut, there are some places where you can see that the impression is still there. It's even fairly deep into the clay. And I have done this, like I said, doing many, many things. I actually did this effect once using a charm. And I had to make the clay rather thick. So I actually took two pieces of clay that I run through the POS machine on the thick setting and put them together and press the charm into it and then cut through that for the mica effect. And it came out amazingly. It surprised me how well it came out. So there's a lot you can do with that technique. And before I forget, and before we get too far into the invisible canes, which I gave you just a taste of last time, I wanted to show this one. And we'll start off with, I'm gonna do a snail. And again, for that, I want to roll the clay so that it's fairly smooth. I can get the trapped air out of it. And then I'm going to roll it so that, well, I shouldn't do it, so that one side is narrow and the other side's fat. So I can kind of roll it up into a nice little spiral. And then I'm going to cut it and show you what it looks like on the inside. And I may actually take a second. There's several things I do with this, but we'll take it simple first. So if I take this guy and start rolling him up, and I just need to roll it up like you would regular snail or a bead of that sort. However you do that, getting reasonably well rolled up. Then I'm going to come in with a sharp, stiff blade. I'm going to just kind of try and shave off just a little bit into it. It's going to be tricky, seeing as how this thing is not perfectly flat on that side. Give him a little push there. See if I can shave through this guy. And avoid cutting fingers when you do this. Okay. And so now you can see that lantern effect I was showing last time. I've got some of the same thing appearing here, so that the light moves a little bit across that shell as I turn it. And you can actually go in at this point and cut this guy so he's fairly flat. And if you're really careful what you're doing, you can get 2 or 3 slices out of this. But I'll just take one. And now I've got something that I could use as a cabochon. It's fairly thin, but it has a nice effect to it. And as I keep saying in this demo, it's all gold clay, so I can take it and run it through the pasta machine and get it ready for the next demo. Now, the next demo, we're going to do a little different because I need to get it all shiny first off. There we go. We're all shiny. I'm going to do that same technique of rolling it up. And as I'm doing that, I'm trying to figure out what's going to happen to the mica when I do this. Let me roll it up. Make sure I've got the air out. I'm going to try and push a little bit together because what I want to do is I'm going to start off looking like the faux wood. So I'm going to take this guy and twist him like I did when I did the wood look, I should say. And I get a lot of twist put into this thing. And I am pushing them up together a little bit just to kind of make the twist a little more dramatic. Getting really, really twisted. Then I'm going to do that same snail thing where I roll him so he's narrow on one end and fat on the other. And I'm rolling this in one direction for a reason that's in the back of my mind that's going to add another twist to it. And just to keep from getting too messy here, we'll stop there. And then I'm going to take this guy and roll him up. like that. And then I want to come in, see if I can do this carefully and avoid cutting my fingers. Make one smooth cut all the way through him. Not quite smooth, but now you can see I've got that twisty look to it, that some of the spiral from the, let me cut him again. Maybe I can get a better cut. One that's got a better image. There we go. I like that one. So now you can see I've got a lot of the spiral appearing in here instead of in addition to the lantern effect. So this is going to give me something that looks more like a shell. And all I did was give it a twist before I cut it. So if I come in, kind of slice him down through the middle, and this clay is quite soft, so it's not a good effect. But again, at this point, I've got a nice piece that would be a good embellishment or a nice focal piece. Clean it up a little bit for something I was going to make. That's that technique with the shell. Let me grab another chunk of clay. Oh, yes. Earlier, I had shown Michelle a dragon that I had made and put scales on him. I've got to think about what it is I need for that, and I need to take this guy and run him through the pos machine a few more times. Because, let's see, that's the thickest setting, and I'm going to take him down a setting and down another setting. I need this piece a little thinner than what I normally work with. I'll cut the ragged edge off that I made. I call this in dragon scales because I was trying to make a dragon when I did him. And again, I'm going to roll it up, try to keep it tight, try to make sure I get the air out of it. Oh, okay. See if I can do this without looking at it. So it's starting from your end. And I need this piece ought to do. Let me do a little bit more here. Whoops, my mistake. We do that. Okay. Now I've got that piece. So what I'm going to do is come in and cut this guy. Okay, now I've got a solid, and I'm going to make these slices fairly thick. And I end up going through a lot of these for this. You can get an idea of how many I made in order to get the scales on my dragon. But take these guys and put them on that piece. I'm going to put them side by side. And I can tell I didn't do a good job of rolling the clay up, but that's neither here nor there at this point. Push them together just a little bit, encourage them to stick. Now the next batch I put on, and I put them over the top. So they're actually sitting on top of the first guys. And the centers are offset from one another. So the second row is shifted a little bit to one side from the first row. And one guy over here on the end just to make things nice and uniform. And I'm going to continue with that. Trying to get several rows built up here. And again, watching me do this for half an hour is no fun. So we will quit after. Actually, I probably want one more row after this. So let me start the next row. I do this because the dragon scales on a dragon overlap. So I realized I needed some overlapping scales for this. So get those guys put on there. There they are. Okay, they're on there. I'm going to trim that off because I don't need that much clay. I'm going to roll over this just a little bit to make sure everyone's stuck down. And yes, they are sticking up a bunch. I'm going to take this whole thing and I'm running through the pasta machine on the thickest setting. And when it comes out, I get that look. Probably could have done a few more tricks and get a little better look on it, but it comes out fairly nice. And by actually, I slice these too thick. If I sliced them thinner, they would have a little better scale effect. I've also been able to kind of get something that looks like bird feathers with this, but that requires doing some of the things to the clay. So those are the dragon scales and the snails, and a quick look at the ghost image. No, as I said, I really wanted to do some more invisible cane because there is so much you can do with that. And you do small changes and you get a totally different effect. So with that in mind, I don't know why I'm conditioning clay, because knowing I was going to be doing this, I set aside a lot of conditioned clay. For this one, I'm going to take a sheet, cut him down. This is going to look a lot like something I did last time, but trust me, it is totally different. Exactly the same and very different. Got a sheet of clay. I'm going to roll it up into a log. Trying to make sure I've got him pressed down. I want to make sure I get the air out. And then I'm going to do the same thing as I've done before, where I roll him out into a very long snake on a very dirty platform. Don't want additional things on my Okay, so I'm going to be working this guy into a very long, skinny shape. Okay, come on. Okay, this is okay. Now we got that guy. I need to make several pieces out of him. So we find something roughly in the middle and cut. Put the ends together. Eyeball where the middle should be. That looks good. Put that together. Didn't quite get those uniform. Sorry about that. Trim this in just a little bit so we. Now comes the fun. This time, you remember last time I took these four and put them exactly on top, so they're sitting one on top of the other, just like that. Yeah. I did that. Sure, I did that. And I took it all apart. Put it right back together. Okay, so I assembled them that way this time, last time. This time I'm going to stagger them just a little bit. He said if he gets them all apart again and presses these guys back together and pushes them so they stay together, these guys get a little bit of a nudge so they stay together. So instead of putting them exactly on top of each other, I'm going to move them over to where the logs fit in the grooves of the previous logs. And I'm going to cut again and do that one more time. So everything's staggered just a little bit and falling apart. There we go. Staggered just a little bit. Now, this presents a bit of a problem because it's hard to square it up without making a mess. So what I do is I'll cut these two logs in half, try to cut them down the middle, pick them up and put them over here. And then I'm going to try and cut these four on the bottom down the middle and put them up on top and fitting inside the grooves of the other guys. Now I've got something that is a reasonably square rectangular block that I can then reduce and get a totally different look out of it. And if you really want to know, I can go into the math and the physics behind what's going on here, but trust me, you don't really want to know that. Actually, I'm a professor. That exercise is left as an exercise for the student to figure out what's happening to the mica and why it's giving us the look it's giving us. And so I'm going to kind of press that, reduce it, get the cane nice and compressed, roll over it with my brayer to make sure I got nice smooth surfaces, because I can never make a nice smooth surface by hand. And then we bring back this. Should be able to cut through that. Yeah, I don't know if it showed. There it is. It gives me a nice tumbling block look. So if I take some slices of that, press them together, mush them together there. I need to then take those guys and put them on top of another piece of gold clay. I need to clean that up because I've got some high points on there. You do that with a flexible blade so that you have a little better control. And I'm doing the same thing I did last time. Okay, just this edge. Thank you. That edge is all it needs. All those seams come together. Clean that guy up. Now I'm going to run in through the phosphor machine on the thickest setting again. And then I'm going to turn him 90 degrees and take it down one setting. And there. And now I've got a nice pattern in there. Okay, that is one thing. One thing you can do with this. Other games you can play. Not going to be enough. I'm going to add more clay to this, run it through pasta machine. So we've got a big chunk of gold to work with. For the next step, get it conditioned and get everything. The big trick here is to make sure that you know where the mica, how the mica is lying, unless you're going for the crushed velvet look and then you don't care. The only thing you don't want is for it to be aligned. The rest of it, just whatever. Oh yes, trying to remember what it was I was thinking about doing. So do that, stack the clay up. I'm doing that I don't know why. Oh, because it was too fat. It was too wide. I needed a narrower sample of the clay. So I'm going to take that stack and run it through the pasta machine one more time. It's not exactly ideal, but that's okay. And then I'm going to do the favorite. Let's roll that up. See if I remember what I'm doing here. Again, pressing down so that I don't so I don't trap any air. I want the end to be nice and nicely shaped. So we'll do that. Take this guy, roll the seam a little bit so that it's not there. I'm intentionally leaving this thing fat. I'm going to trim the ends. There's that end. There's the other end. And I know my own skill level, so I'm going to cut this guy in half because what I really want to do is show what I'm going to cut this guy into, let me go for 8 pieces. So we're going to slice our pie into 8 segments. Or at least try to. Okay, did that. Now I'm going to take my segments. Sure, I'm going to take my segment. Take my segments, separate them out, and reassemble them, but I'm going to put them back together in a different fashion. So that what I'm going to do, there, is put them together this way. Like that. Okay. And then I'm going to press those guys together. I've actually got a couple options here. I think I'll go ahead and do that this time. So let me just press that into a block. You can say there's so many things you can do with this. Yeah. Kind of getting nice there. And we'll see what this guy looks like when we take him off there. And every once in a while you do this, you think, that's not really what I was expecting. That's okay. We'll try this and see what happens. And then we'll try something else. Again, through the pasta sheet on the thick setting. Take it down a notch. I'm going to take it down a second notch and run it again. It is a different sort of a pattern. It's not the one I was looking for, though. Okay. It's always embarrassing when you've done something and you can't remember how you did it. But that is how I started this. So how did I finish this? Because I had to do that. I had to do. Oh, maybe I'm going about it the wrong way. Let me try something else. I'm going to take this guy and I'm going to make him into one of my long, skinny snakes. That'll be interesting. Let's see what that looks like. Yes, it would be easier if I started with a long, skinny snake to begin with, but it probably is what I should do because this guy is going wonky. Let me take my clay and, like I say, it's all gold clay. Yay. And we'll run it through the pasta machine several times to get it all nice and smooth. One solid look to it. What I'm doing is once a long time ago, I did something and I called it grapefruit. Actually, Pure Volks did it and she called it grapefruit. And so I stole the idea. But I will give her credit. So we're going back to our snake because I think I want to try something different. It may be something I've never tried before, or it may be something I've done and forgot that this is actually what I did. But it promises to be entertaining regardless. Okay, we've got our fairly long snake there. You would not believe how much gold clay I've got on my work surface. Trim up the ends. Find the middle. Gee, this sounds familiar, doesn't it? Then I'm going to cut this guy into 6 pieces. So now I've got 6 pieces. I'm going to take these 6 pieces and I'm going to make a wedge for each one. Something that we probably have all done if we're making canes at one time or another. Then I'm going to stack them together. Like that. Take this guy and add him to the pile. Yes, this works if you do 8 snakes or 8 cuts instead of 6. It just gives you a slightly different look. I probably should have done 8 as I'm looking at how I'm assembling this, because I'm assembling it as though I've got 8 and not 6, but that's okay. There are things we can do to fix that. So I've got that put together. I'm going to smoosh it around a little bit, work it around where everything is nice and tight and snug in there. Want to make sure all the gaps are filled up. Okay. It feels pretty good. I'm going to roll it a little bit to kind of make it smooth and fairly uniform. And again, trying to push everything into a nice snug pattern and see how that looks. And that did not come out the way I thought it was going to come out. I'll have to think about this some more and try it again. Sorry, I'm off camera. Yep, I'm off camera. Okay, we're on camera. I've taken 4 slices, put them on a piece of gold. I'm going to roll over them quickly, just kind of get them fairly down, flat. And I'm going to take that and run it through the pasta machine on the thick setting again. Take it down a notch, run it through. That is singularly uninteresting. It's different, but it's not what I was looking for. Oh, because I'm looking the wrong side. Okay, there we go. That looks a lot better to me. If I can get that to come up. Okay, there you see the patterns. And they do change as I turn and twist and bend things around. And so now I got nice little hexes there. Okay, now I'm curious to what happens if I do that same thing, but with 8 slices instead of 6. What am I doing? Okay, that's what I'm doing. Take this. Get that out of the way. Did I ever mention that you get a lot of scraps of gold when you do this? I'm gonna take this guy, roll him up again. One more time. Well, probably not one more time. We'll see how things go here. I probably should have started with a thinner sheet of clay because I can feel a little bit of the clay complaining that it's lumpy because I started off too thick. So memo, when you're doing this, start off with thin sheets of clay that are fairly long instead of one short fat slice. In the middle, pair them up. Come up this end. Gotta pick a middle because I want 8 slices this time. Find the middle up there. Okay. Now, once more, we're going to kind of assemble these guys. I'm not going to be overly careful with this because I want to see what it does. I think I know what it should do. So I don't need to be, I'm just not being overly fastidious in how I'm putting this thing together. And there are some options as to what I could do instead, but we'll do it this way. Get that guy down, put him in there, put him in there. Just trying to make sure all my points come together in the middle of my grapefruit. And yes, I could have just cut that in half and flipped it over and done that, but I started this way, so I'll finish this way. Get those guys together. They're looking good. One more in there. Get that guy in there right. Everyone's nicely lined up. Put these two halves together and get them where they're reasonably as they should. Working to squeeze the air out, starting in the middle to squeeze the air out to the ends. Because I don't want any air in this thing when I'm done. And the usual roll to kind of get him somewhat uniform. Take a oh yeah, okay, this is looking good. Put these guys on there. Ooh, there's another trick. You should never try things in a demo that you haven't already tried outside the demo, but I just thought of something I haven't tried before and I want to see what's going to happen, but we'll do that in a minute. Get these guys together like that. I'll put him in there all nicely lined up, nice and neat. Take this guy and run it through the pos machine. On the thickest setting, down one, turn it, take it through. Let's see how that looks. Okay. Yeah, we're seeing some of the pattern. Let me take it through again. So we get a little better pattern coming out of that. I'm going to trim the end and run it one more time. There we go. So you kind of get the 8-sided look on that. Now, the question I had as I was doing this is if I come in, trim that guy up a little bit to make sure I got a clean cut. And I'm going to cut another 4 slices off of this guy. Trying to keep them fairly uniform in thickness. That may not be what I want to do, but I'll do that and see what happens. This time I want to push them together so that I end up with a square when I'm done. And I'm thinking I probably should have done that before I got this far along. And I may go back and try something else to help me do that. Oops, that didn't work. Okay, plan B. We take this guy, cut him in half, cut him in half, cut him in half, trim off the end, put these guys together to some nice square shape, because I just want to know what's going to happen at this point. You play with this and you keep coming up with, what happens if I try this? What happens if I try that? All I can answer is just try it. There are so many things. I've actually done a very complex cane. There's nothing but mica. And that's from the guy that says, I don't do cane work. I don't really, not much. Shave this guy down through that face and see what I get. That's different. You do that. Find a piece of clay that you haven't messed up too badly. Roll over him with a brayer just a little bit to make sure I get him down flat. Take him through on the thick setting. Oh, this may take a couple passes. Well, I get a nice effect. It borders on my crushed velvet, but it does change a lot of the lighting on there, doesn't it? Okay. We've been doing this for a while. Let me stop the recording. If I can figure out where the button is for the stop recording. There is a button somewhere on this page for stop recording. Come on.